by this group of men to come back.
USA on one. USA!
Third gold in a row. Rio, Tokyo, and now Paris.
Coming to you from the Olympic City, Colorado Springs, Colorado, this is the USA Volleyball Show. And here's your host, Stephen Munson.
Hello and welcome to the USA Volleyball Show, the official podcast of USA Volleyball. I'm your host, Stephen Munson, and in today's episode, we had the amazing opportunity to chat with University of Maryland Eastern Shore men's volleyball head coach Anitra Brockman and Victor Vitarelli, the director of Why Not Us, an ESPN original highlighting the lead up to the inaugural season of UMES Men's Volleyball Program, the first men's volleyball program at a traditional Division I HBCU. A little backstory, back in 2023, the USA Volleyball Foundation's First Point Fund announced a $250,000 grant that was provided to UMES to aid in the establishment of the men's volleyball program. So that was kind of the start of this whole journey. And then Why Not Us kind of follows after that into the lead up of the inaugural season for UMES men's volleyball. But Why Not Us is streaming now on ESPN Plus and the ESPN app. I will note that our conversation has some light spoilers for the documentary, so feel free to pause on this podcast episode right now and go watch the film first, and then come back for some more insights and behind the scenes type talk. I think if you do it that way, it could be a fun just kind of commentary on the film, and you'll have a little bit of more context as you're listening to our conversation. But all that said, the conversation goes a little bit longer than we normally do on our episodes, but trust me, it's a good thing. We talked to Anitra about her coaching journey, which is a unique one with her not having a volleyball background before she got into coaching. Also talk, about how the film came to fruition. And like I said, some fun behind the scenes stories from both Anitra and Victor throughout the making of the film, and so much more. So let's just jump right into it. Here is Anitra and Victor. Excited to talk about the latest entry into the docuseries Why Not Us, an ESPN original series focusing on the triumphs and challenges of historically black colleges and university athletics. This installment, specifically that we're going to talk about today, follows the story of University of Maryland Eastern Shore men's volleyball, and specifically the lead up to the inaugural season of the program. And the film will debut Friday, March 27th in the afternoon there. So stay tuned to our social media. We'll have kind of updates as we near that date, but for specific times or any of that. But I guess first off, I would love, Victor, Anitra, first off, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I'm really excited about this. I watched the documentary twice. I had it up while I was folding laundry earlier today to try to get through a third time because I was just enjoying it so much. But Victor, Anitra, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let's really quick for our listeners, before we get too deep into our discussion, would love each of you to kind of introduce yourselves and your roles with the documentary and the program as well. And let's start with Anitra.
Okay. My name's Dr. Anitra Brockman. I am the head men's volleyball coach at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and I'm very excited to be part of the documentary and it be told the story about how our program got started.
And I'm Victor Vitarelli. I had the pleasure of directing the documentary and working very closely with Coach and the team throughout the process.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves to our listeners here, and so excited to talk to you about this documentary because it was so impactful, or I think it's going to be so impactful for the volleyball community to see this documentary, and would love to kick off the discussion just first by talking about how the decision to start a men's volleyball program at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and I know we're probably going to abbreviate it a lot. UMES. I don't. Is UMES correct? I thought I might have heard that in a documentary once or twice.
Yeah, they said that incorrectly. It's
Okay.
definitely a pet peeve of administration. So UMES.
UMES. Glad we clarified that at the beginning here so I don't mess that up going forward. But yeah, how did the decision to start a men's volleyball program come to be?
So just going off of my, basic knowledge of it, the vice president of athletics and recreation, Tara Owens, she initiated a conversation with the president of our university, Dr. Heidi Anderson, and partnered with Wade Gerard and John Speraw, First Point Volleyball. And prior to that, little backstory, VP Owens, she helped start men's volleyball at her previous institution, which also was my previous institution, Central State University. And so it was very fitting that she got to University of Maryland Eastern Shore to start men's volleyball here. I don't know what those conversations entailed, but my general idea was that she had success at Central State with that first year, and she wanted to start it at UMES and get that going. And knowing how she is as a trailblazer, wanting to get this program to be the first Division I HBCU, I'm pretty sure was something that stood out to her as well. So just First Point Volleyball played a huge role in helping us get off the ground too. So would be remiss if I did not mention that and express gratitude on that end.
And then from the film standpoint, Victor, when were you approached, or how did you kind of come to learn about UMES?
Yeah, I read about, it was just a short blurb in the D1 Ticker, which is a college sports newsletter, that the First Point Volleyball Foundation had donated funds to UMES to start the first men's Division I volleyball program at an HBCU, and that was the extent of the blurb. But it jumped out at me as an interesting story potentially. I reached out to Wade. Didn't know Wade before this. We've now become fast friends, but it was a cold call to Wade. To his credit, he understands the value of storytelling and immediately gravitated towards the idea of how do we tell this story. He was able to invite me to a couple of First Point Volleyball Foundation board meetings where we pitched the idea, we talked about the idea, got great support from the board there. Bill Andrews ultimately came on the project as an executive producer, and we were able to put together a deal between ESPN and First Point Volleyball Foundation to move forward with the film.
And then Anitra, you talked about just kind of like the origins of the idea of starting the program. But when did you come in? Where were you at before UMES, and what kind of drew you to this role?
I was at Central State University before coming to UMES. I was there for 2 years. I took over the program the second year it was an actual program. And so I was there the second and third year of its existence. And I would say I became interested in UMES once I knew Tara Owens, VP Owens had taken the job here as the athletic director. I knew I wanted to work under her leadership again. I worked for her at Central State for a short period, and I didn't get to really work with her very long, but she just is an influential leader. And I wanted to work under her leadership and guidance and put my name in the hat. And I said, what the heck? Let's see what works, if this works. And I tell you, I've never lived anywhere but Ohio. So to take that big leap, I was a little nervous, but when I got the call with the offer, I was ecstatic and excited. And it was funny because it was also, congratulations, we want to offer you this job. and we know that you're about to go to nationals to recruit, but ESPN's going to be there following you. And I had no idea about any of that.
Oh, really?
It didn't come up in my interview or anything.
Oh, wow.
So I said, wait, what? What's going on? So it was really nice how they dropped that on me at that time. But I was excited about it.
That's amazing. Just kind of left it out of the interview process there. Oh yeah, and ESPN's going to be following you. That's so cool. That's awesome. I guess they didn't want that to sway your decision at all, and but that's really cool. I know a little bit about. I'm from Texas. I lived in Texas my entire life until I moved to Colorado for my job at USA Volleyball here. What was that? 12 years ago now? 11 or 12 years ago now. So yeah, that nervousness to leave home, yeah, definitely can relate to that too. But yeah, love Colorado now, and I have a family here now. I'm married. I have a son, 2.5-year-old son, and yeah, we'll probably never leave Colorado. But yeah, just want to get into the timeline of the documentary too. Victor, when did production start for the documentary, and I guess maybe talk a little bit about the storyboarding process and maybe those early meetings, kind of what you wanted to focus on in the flow for the film.
Yeah, so we had the deal in place before there was even a coach, right? So it was there was a lot to do, but also there was nothing really to shoot yet. There was no team, and so we planned out what we thought would be the execution. One of the challenges certainly is that ultimately you're covering what turned into an 18-month process from really our first shoot until our last shoot. So you're doing, you would want to just have a camera embedded the entire 18 months, but that's not practical. So you're planning out those moments where you believe there's going to be story points that need to be told. So you're doing all of that without the context of who's the coach, who are the players. When coach was finally hired and we had our first conversation, I remember immediately after that, I said, well, wait a minute, you have the first Black woman to be a Division I men's volleyball coach. Like, you got me there. That's a great log line. And then after our conversation, I just knew that coach was going to be a tremendous character, and really made the decision at that point to focus on her and her story, building this program.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to another question I had early on. Yeah, what I noticed, like, especially early on, you were following Anitra, and rightly so, as the helm of the program, and like you mentioned before, the first Black woman to lead a D1 men's volleyball program too. But I guess, yeah, was there anything else that just like really kind of clicked and inspired for you about her story, her background, or coming into this role?
Well, it's interesting. So I've had the good fortune in my professional life to spend a lot of time around sports. College athletic departments, big and small, professional sports, and I'm really interested in the coaches as characters. They are typically the fulcrum of the entire program, and looking at what coach had in front of her, not the least of which is, her son Jordan was coming with her to play for her. Being a female coaching a men's team, it's a fascinating story. And I knew from my initial conversations that, coach's approach was going to be different to this than what I think sort of Hollywood looks at as a coach with a clipboard screaming and yelling until the athletes do it the way they wanted to do it. That ultimately played out the way I thought it would over the 18 months, the way Coach approaches her job, and the, they're her players, but they're her family, and that really comes through. And when you talk to the athletes, they want to be successful for her. They want to achieve for her. And that's a really interesting component that you don't typically see with a male coach coaching a men's team.
You put two visuals in my head just from the documentary. The first one, I believe, is the opening scene. Anitra, you're kind of doing some like mental visualization exercise with the team, which I thought was really cool and unique. And then also later on, I can't remember when it was, but you're driving the team in a van, and you're just no audio's playing. It's just music, but you can tell you're all having a good time, and you can tell they enjoy playing for you and just being around you. So I guess diving into that too, would love to hear more about your coaching philosophy, Anitra.
Yeah, I would say my coaching philosophy is I'm focused on developing the student athlete as a whole person, not just what they can bring in terms of volleyball skill. And I think that is what helped me with my approach in recruiting this team. I was looking at 3 specific things: character, integrity, and accountability, along with their academic track record. And then, of course, the skill set, because I couldn't just bring in all the guys that had high character but couldn't play a lick of volleyball. I had to make sure that they could play.
Need a little balance there, right? Yeah.
Right. Had a little balance. But it was really fun, because to have the time that I had, in my previous role, I didn't have a lot of time. It was, you're hired, now you got to recruit or have the team that that was already in place. I had time, and I appreciate that I had that time, because it allowed me to really stay focused on, okay, how do I want to build this program? What do I want the culture to look like? It gave me a chance to get used to the university and get a feel for what the university culture was like. So then that way, when I was talking to recruits, I could say, hey, this is what campus life is like. This is what I think you'd be a great fit. And I wasn't just feeding them lines. I was actually telling them based off what I was experiencing myself here. But it was really important to me that character was the forefront. I wanted to make sure that I was coaching a group of young men that had high character. I didn't want a group of guys coming in that could just ball, but they couldn't, go out and talk to people, or people were like, what a bunch of jerks. Like, they're a reflection of me, and I'm not a jerk. So I wanted to make sure I brought a team together that they were going to be a brotherhood, but also, I want them to understand that how you are off the court is just as important as how you are on the court.
Yeah, and I think you see that reflected, a number of times in the documentary. And I think one of the fun scenes I thought was like the beach training, and I think that was one of the first practices too, or trainings, and they were all just like exhausted and thought it was so hard, but at the same time, it kind of locked in that brotherhood, that bonds between them, that family culture for them. And I think that was a good way to kind of intro into the program. So that was really cool to see.
I will, Steven, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I will
go,
say
please.
Also that, it's one thing to coach a program, but what Coach Brockman did was build a program. And there's a significant difference in that, because there is no culture. There is no, this is what was done in the past. And that's huge when it comes to what happened over the last 18 months, because it's not just, okay, I'm going to go out and recruit my 4 or 5 kids that are going to replace my graduating seniors. It's, how do I build a team from scratch? How do I establish who this team is and what this team is all about, and get results on the court. So it's infinitely more difficult what coach has done over the last 18 months than once it's established and you're just bringing in new recruits into an established program every year. And that was I think an interesting story point throughout as well.
Yeah, and I think you talked about Anitra. You talked about bringing in some transfers to kind of help the freshmen along. I imagine that helped kind of build the culture too. Did you approach establishing that culture any differently than you did in previous programs, or did you talk to anyone else at UMES, any of the other coaches or anything to help kind of establish what you wanted for that culture?
No, I relied heavily on the team. Once the team was formed, we had Zoom meetings once a month starting December 2024. I had to think, I'm like, how long ago was that?
That's correct.
December 2024 was our first Zoom meeting, and we had a meeting once a month leading up to when they got on campus in August. And during each meeting, we talked about, what do we want the culture to look like? I had a team handbook, a team playbook. We went through each of those things, but I made it very clear to them that I believe in a player-led mentality. And so what that means to me, it wasn't, a lot of people think player-led means the players just run everything. But to me, it was the players have the buy-in. If I allowed the players to decide what the culture was going to be, help set goals, help me set the standard, then they were going to trust the process from the beginning, and I had their buy-in. And that is what truly has helped create the culture that we have now.
What were some of those like early conversations like, if you can share them just with the athletes during those Zoom calls? What was important to them for the culture?
That they had a brotherhood. That was the common theme. And then they soon changed it to family because they're like, well, coach can't be a brother. So so they changed it to family. Another common theme was making sure that we're not late to things, making sure we're going to be where we're supposed to be. They were very adamant about that piece.
That's cool.
Being on time to practice, being on time to lift. They're very intentional about making sure that at practices that the three things that we can control, that we bring those: effort, attitude, and energy. They were like, coaches shouldn't have to coach us on those things. Just things that in my mind, knowing that we were freshman heavy, I did not anticipate a lot of our calls going the way they did. I thought I was going to have to kind of nudge them a little, but I I sat back and I said, wow, this is kind of leading itself. I wasn't shocked, but I just anticipated having to nudge a little, but having those transfers definitely helped because they helped navigate conversations like that. But I also think it helped the transfers having those conversations because at their previous institutions, they said they had never experienced anything like that before, to where they've been on Zoom calls before, the season even starts, getting to meet their teammates and interacting and talking about, this is what we're going to do and this is what our season looks like, and here's our handbook with the standards, and here's our playbook. Most first year programs don't focus on those things initially. So I was really proud of them for initiating those things on their own.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's I'm impressed too. Like to have those kind of mature conversations and mature responses to that kind of prompt of what do you want your culture to be, and you think it'd be like, yeah, I want to win, but it was more than that. They wanted a family. They wanted to really establish something. So that's really cool. Want to make sure we don't get too far in. But I want to go back because we alluded to it before. But upon accepting the role, you became the first Black woman to lead a D1 men's volleyball program. Volleyball is an underrepresented sport from a diversity standpoint, both from the athlete and I would say the coach standpoint as well. But I guess for you, in your eyes, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean for the sport overall?
What it means to me is that I now have a greater responsibility to continue paving the way for other young female leaders, Black or non-Black female leaders who want to someday be in a role like mine. So I have a greater responsibility, but it also means that the sport is expanding. From a diversity standpoint, obviously our team is showing that, but from the coaching side of it, I'm not the only female head coach. I am in Division I, but there's a few other female head coaches in the D2 space. So I just think that just shows there's greater opportunity for programs to expand and realize that there should be no gender. It should be qualification based off of who's fit to lead a program of young men who want to succeed on and off the court. And I think that UMES helped set that standard, not just with us being the first D1 HBCU, but with me being the first Black female head coach at Division I. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that I don't let down any young woman looking up to me that wants to be here.
One of the kind of striking moments in the documentary, and it was just a black screen that said you had 18 months since you were hired to kind of start your recruitment process and sign athletes and prepare for that first match for the program. How did you approach that task leading, upon accepting the role?
Very carefully, very carefully. I think at first it was, let me take a breath and take a moment to take it all in, because I knew things were going to kind of happen fast. Even though I had that amount of time, it still happened quickly. I knew I was hired in June, and so I knew I had to hurry up and hit the ground running with recruiting because the club tournaments were happening. So I tell you, when I went to nationals, I didn't have one plan in the works. I said, okay, here's my iPad. I've gotten some emails. I'm going to try and look at some emails. I had some recruits that I had looked at from my previous institution that were still on my list. So I said, let me go walk around, look at some of these individuals. After day one, I gathered myself and I said, okay, now I have a list. I have a list and a plan. And then after nationals, I will say that's when the plan started coming to fruition. After I had set up a couple phone calls, then I went to Texas for the First Point Invitational, which I had so much fun at that event. And I think after that, it was then let me lock in and start making calls, making offers, getting official visits scheduled. So I just had to make sure I was organized in my process and make sure that I brought them in groups. So I also had to make sure, I didn't want to lose my sanity bringing all these recruits on campus, but I also wanted to make sure that they were going to have enjoyable visits. I couldn't have done it without my son. That I was thankful that he had that whole experience of being a student at UMES. So then when I was on the route of the tour, he would tell, this is where study hall is. This is where, I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And he could answer questions about, what the food is like and I could answer it from my perspective, but my palate's different than, young adults, young teenagers, young
college
adults.
student.
So,
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was nice having him there. And it was nice because he also got to see potentially future teammates. So, and he would give his input. Oh, I hope they come back. I hope they commit. So it was just really fun to see that he was enjoying this process alongside me, but from a different perspective. But it truly, 18 months, man, it went so fast, but I had ample time to do everything I needed to do. So I never felt rushed ever in the process. And the administration here gave me every resource possible to be able to get the team together the way I did.
I didn't realize that Jordan, your son, was a student already there, and then was part of the team after that. That's certainly super helpful to have for your recruitment process, and just to be able to talk to the athlete to athlete, college student to college student. That's awesome. That's really cool, and I'm sure like a really cool just mother son bonding just to kind of go through that together. That's awesome.
I enjoyed it. I did.
What for Victor? How much were you kind of along for the ride through that kind of recruitment process? Kind of those 18 months, I guess I should say, is just how often were you with Anitra, following her along?
So we looked at the schedule, knew what needed to be done, and tried to identify moments along the way that would be storytelling points. So there's a lot of firsts in there. She had a lot of recruits come to campus. We went when there was the largest group coming to capture as many of those individual stories as we could. So the process was plan it out as much as you can, gather it, and then go back and sort of see how that story develops. When, as an example, the recruiting class is there and we're covering and we're shooting, we don't know who's going to stand out and who's going to become a character at that time. So you cover it all and then go back once you have an understanding of how it's all come together and build the story.
Anitra, what was the biggest hurdle, starting this program from the ground up?
Having an ESPN camera with her the whole time.
A camera in your face at all times.
Top three. I think I tell you, Victor and TL made it so easy because they're just genuinely nice people and they make you feel comfortable. And so that definitely was not a stressor whatsoever. But I would say the recruiting, just in regards to the commit, waiting for them to commit. I always joked and said, this is like my fantasy, my little fantasy board up here. Yeah. And I just remember I felt like I was moving, adding, moving, shifting. But
I remember you had like your sections, like your verbal commits, your maybes. Yeah. Yep.
Yes. And that part was probably the most stressful, just because it was the waiting game. I felt like, okay, here I am on the visits and here I am. And a lot of them did not commit on their visits. A lot of them waited until they got back home, which, and I told them no pressure. The ones who did commit on their visit made my life great because I'd go back to my office and circle them on the board. And it was great. But I think that was challenging. And then the other challenging piece in regards to that on the back end was the roster limit. Once the roster limit was put into place, I had to make decisions because I had, I want to say 22. I had 22 that had committed. And when I found out that we were opting in, I thought, oh no, I have to make another decision that I don't want to make being a first year program. And so that decision was difficult. And so, and having to make the call, and what I chose to do was I let the whole team know, because I'm just a transparent person. And so I just let the whole team know, just want to let you all know, we are opting in as a university. That means that we have to have an 18 roster limit. And I said, so I have to make a difficult decision. In that decision, I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to help those that I have to call to say that you won't be on the team to find a new home. I will say that of those four, 3 of the 4 found another place. I helped them find another place. So
Awesome.
it was just, that part was difficult because, you never want to, you make their day by making them an offer and being on the team. But then I felt like I let them down by having to tell them, I'm sorry, now I've got to retract that. So that was difficult.
Well, you were there for them too in that moment, which I think is huge. And honestly, like 22 as a first year program, like that's a huge testament to what you were building and what you were talking about with those athletes. So congratulations to you on that. And I mean, it's a good problem to have too many than not enough, but I can certainly see how that would be very difficult conversations to have. But happy to hear that 3 of those 4 were able to land somewhere else. Move-in day was such a cool moment in the documentary, I feel like, and it was the first time, maybe not the first time exactly, but all the athletes are on campus together. You had the women's team coming to help move in the guys too, which I think goes back to kind of that family culture that you talked about early on. The family culture between the 2 programs too seems pretty strong. But not only a special moment for your athletes and you just being their coach, but also as a mother to your son, moving him into college too, and his dorm, and you were both together along this whole ride the whole time. So I would love to just kind of hear you talk a little bit more about move-in day from your perspective.
Move-in day was fun. It was fun. Everything, the documentary captured everything about move-in day. I think leading up to move-in day, we were doing a countdown in our group chat, like 3 more days. And then we were like, 1 more sleep. It was just, everybody was so excited. And I had not seen all of those guys since that summer at their nationals, their tournament. So that was the last I had seen them. So yes, that was their first time on campus and their first time all together meeting each other. And to capture all of that and to be there for that, I was so excited. I don't think I slept hardly a wink that night, and woke up that next morning and I was like, I'm so tired, but I'm full of energy. I can sleep later. I was just really excited about it. And as far as women's volleyball, I spent that past year really forming connections with all the coaches here on campus for all the sports. I did that intentionally because I said, if I can form those connections and build those relationships with my colleagues, once the team comes on campus and that culture's instilled, then they're going to feel that same type of connection. And I tell you, it's definitely come full circle. The guys from day one, women's volleyball immediately connected. They have been waiting forever. They're like, when are they getting here? When are they getting here? And then when the women's volleyball season started, the guys went to away games, home games, and even throughout the season for the other sports, the team has been present. And they've gotten multiple shout outs for their energy on ESPN because of it. But, move-in day was special because I think they were nervous. They were all nervous. Like, man, we're about to be first-time college students. You had transfers coming to a new place they had never been to. I'm nervous because it's my first time that I'm like, I have a team. I have a team. My assistant coach, it was new for him. It was his first time meeting all of those players. He wasn't on the process for the recruiting. And so it was all just excitement, nerves. But then as a mother, I was, it was emotional. It was emotional. My son is my youngest of my 3. And for him to come on this journey and trust the process with me, class of 2024, to sit out a year and not play volleyball, to follow me here, and just go on this journey, and to wait a whole year to get to meet his teammates and, get to play with them on the court. It meant a lot. It meant a lot. And so moving him in, I was like, whoa, I'm an empty nester. I am an empty nester. And so I think that night when I got home is when it hit me, because I was like, wait a minute, my son's not here. He was here last year, and now he's not here. And so it was a moment for me, but I think ultimately to get to share that day with all of them, it was a beautiful experience, and I'm so glad that it's been captured.
What was interesting, as an outside observer on that day, and what's captured in the film, is certainly the emotion of Coach dropping Jordan off in his room, but also just the idea that she lost one son out of the house, but sort of brought 17 in, and that's apparent on that day. It really, the idea of this sport and the community around this sport is something that I had certainly heard about, but hadn't experienced until I had the opportunity to really be around the team. And as I mentioned earlier, I've had the opportunity to be around all different types of sports at a lot of different levels. And there really truly is something different about the volleyball community. And on that day, you could tell that there was just a comfort level that that they all had. And I think that's really about what this sport is at the largest level.
Yeah, I'm certainly biased, but I can attest to that culture of the volleyball community, the community aspect of the volleyball community. But it's like speaking a common language. You walk in somewhere, you make that volleyball connection, and then it's off to the races. And I always say it's a big community, but it's small. Everybody knows everybody. There's some connection somewhere in there, and so yeah, certainly a very special and unique community within our sport, across all disciplines, indoor, beach, sitting. Yeah, certainly can attest to that. The other cool moment, probably shortly after move-in day, was the first practice. And you could, at least for me watching, I could feel the anxiousness, the nervousness coming through the screen, but at the same time, just the excitement and the energy around it. And maybe a testament to Victor, how you shot it too, and were able to edit and cut that together. It really came through the screen for me. But I guess starting off with Anitra, can you just talk about what that first practice was like? Was that just kind of like one of the first real moments maybe for you, for the program?
Yes, it was. It was. And I remember as I'm being mic'd up to get ready to head into the gym, I'm pretty sure I said multiple times, oh, I'm so nervous. Because, you don't know, you can plan and plan and plan. And that's what I did over the course of that 18 months, was planned and had mentors and made sure that I was in alignment as a coach, to make sure I had all the tools and resources to make sure I could give my team the best of me as their coach. But it's still not, you can still do all the planning in the world. It doesn't get rid of the nerves. And I just remember before walking into that gym, I thought, whew, I don't know. I have not coached for an entire 18 months.
That's right.
So
I hadn't even thought of that part of it. Yeah.
I had not coached. And I thought, I'm excited, but I'm also nervous because I didn't know, these guys don't know my coach. They didn't know my coaching style. They only knew what I told them. The only person on that team that knew my coaching style was Jordan. And so, I was nervous, anxious, excited, but the minute, we started talking, and I was like, shoot, I'm not nervous. They're nervous. We're all nervous. But the minute they just started getting after it, and we drill after drill after drill, nerves went away. They went away, and then it all of a sudden, all the things we talked about on the Zoom call started coming to life. Like, our standard is we talk. Our standard is we hustle. Our standard, like, all of these things started coming to life, and I was like, wow, okay, you got this, girl. Get it together.
So yeah, Victor, for you, you spent so much time preparing for the film, storyboarding, um, along for the ride with Anitra. Was this like a really cool moment for you to kind of experience like the first volleyball for this program and yeah, just being there on campus with this team for that first practice?
There were a lot of fun firsts that really sort of, I think, made it come to life in that moment. The the locker room reveal, which didn't make the final cut of the film, but we're going to use as a social media promotion, so that'll go out publicly. And it's a beautiful scene because you have these 18 kids who are so genuinely excited to see this refurbished locker room with their jerseys, and it's a lot of, I think, a culmination of their journey, their hard work to get to the point where they are a Division I athlete, a Division I volleyball player, and they're standing in their locker room looking at their jersey. And I think the overwhelming emotion was just gratitude, and that was really powerful. There was no expectation of, this these are all things that I get. It was just gratitude and joy, and that was, I think, a very powerful moment for me as well.
I have not seen that clip, but I'm eagerly awaiting to see that locker room clip. Just based on the couple conversations we've had talking about it. So looking forward to seeing that. That's really cool. And I'm going to get to it later, but I would like to hear maybe some more moments that that didn't make the final cut of the film that you thought were kind of fun too. But before we get to that, there was a moment in the film, Anitra, where you kind of talked about the adversity that you'd faced through your career, and you mentioned not even just the outside adversity, but the inside, the internal adversity, just kind of doubting yourself. Can you dive in a little bit more on that, and then just kind of how you overcame that for you?
So my path is a little unorthodox compared to most coaches. So I didn't play this sport in college. I didn't play it in high school. I played in 7th and 8th grade, but my parents made me choose. And softball was my sport. And so that's the path I took as a youngin' back in the day. But, once I had children, my children wanted to do volleyball. And so they needed coaches. And first my daughter, then my son, and I just grew to love it. It goes back to that community feel of the sport. And I just gravitated towards volleyball. And I said, I've got to become a student of it if I want to continue to coach it at the level I'm coaching. So I started club, just YMCA, but then I started going to bigger clubs and then high school. And I said, I've got to start becoming smarter and stronger in my knowledge of this game. And then as I continued, I was like, 1 year turned into 2, and then 2 into 10. And I said, I think I might want to do this at the college level. But I will tell you, at the high school level, I faced a lot of adversity because I was the only Black female head coach of boys volleyball in the state of Ohio. And I was also the president of the Boys Volleyball Association. So I just had a lot of doubters and a lot of pushback on suggestions and ideas, ways to help make the sport better in the state, ways to help grow the game. There was always pushback, or if a male spoke up about it, his opinion was more validated than mine. So I would choose to, okay, well, I'll just kind of back off But then I just realized, like, I have an opportunity to do something great in this sport. And I said, I don't know unless I try. And so once I applied for the Central State job and got that, I remember the conversation VP Owens had with me at that time. And I remember asking her, a high school coach can be a Division II coach? And she said, I don't know about all of them, but you can. And she said, and that's why I want you
Wow.
to come work for me. And I think at that moment, I was like, wow, there's somebody that believes in me. And I think, that self-doubt enters naturally, because I think you wonder, am I good enough? Especially when you've not played the sport and you've seen coaches at this level who've played, they're all Americans, or they've won championships, or Hall of Famers. And I'm like, do I compare to them? It got to a point to where I finally had to say, I need to stop comparing myself and just be my authentic self, and understand that there's going to be a group of athletes that are going to want to come play for me because of who I am, not because of necessarily what I know. Yeah, they want to make sure their coach has knowledge and understands the game. But if I can show them who I genuinely am and that I care about them, then all the rest is going to work itself out. And I didn't need to necessarily compare myself to all of those individuals. And what I did instead was I decided to make them my mentors. I decided to ask them to be my mentor. I don't have that experience that you have. Share your knowledge with me. And the one thing that I did find was that they were willing to. They were willing to. That's the beauty of this sport. There aren't very many on the men's side where I have seen anybody tell me no. In terms of resources or support, I could pick up the phone today and call any one of those head coaches, and no one would say, no, I don't have time. Everybody has time for everyone. And that's what I really love. And that's what has helped me kind of get out of, I think early on in my career, get out of that rut I felt I was in of, I don't think I'm good enough. That was something internal I had to deal with. But man, I tell you, I'll do anything for this team. And I think they know that at this point. Sometimes they take advantage of it. But but yeah, I would go through a mountain for this team. So whatever it is I have to do to make sure, if I'm lacking in something, I'm going to find a mentor that can help me so that I can gain that necessary knowledge so that my team's where they need to be.
I'm gonna steal a quote from the film that you said. UMES, we're UMES men's volleyball, and we ain't going anywhere. You're Dr. Anitra Brockman, and you ain't going anywhere. That's that was. I think that's such a. I mean, for a lot of people, their introduction to the sport is they just need some sort of intro. Whether that's coaching, whether that's being a parent in the sport, an official. Playing the sport, but that bug it bites hard, and that itch just keeps coming. You want more and more of that. So I think a lot of people could relate to that with you, not coming from outside of the volleyball world and now full force in it. Because I think a lot of people that's the same for a lot of people. It was the same for me. I never played the sport. I think I may have done like a fifth grade team. It was like the basketball team did that in the fall or the spring or whenever it was, but I never played until like actual organized play until college. I played college club at Texas State University, and before that I had played in just for fun, like 6-on-6 beach with my friends and stuff. But I enjoyed it, and I was athletic. I played almost every sport. But I remember playing in like a fundraiser tournament for my dorm or something in college, and the men's team was there recruiting to like, hey, come out to tryouts next week. And I had just never really been around men's or boys volleyball. I obviously seen the women's and girls side of the game, but I took one step in that gym and I was like, I gotta be a part of this. This is so cool. Just the athleticism in it, and and that's when it hit for me. And I never really thought I was going to keep going with volleyball after. I still try to play here and there, and just local tournaments and stuff. And then obviously now working at USA Volleyball too. So my video media background with my volleyball passion just kind of came together, and kind of the best of both worlds. So it was really cool. We're kind of getting close to time, so I want to double check how you guys are doing with your own schedules. I have a few more questions, but I can kind of wrap it up quick if we need to.
I'm fine.
Good.
Good. Okay. Sweet. Would love to jump into Puerto Rico. Another cool moment. I feel like I keep saying that. Just so many cool moments in this, but I imagine for the guys, this was probably like when it felt real. You're suiting up for your first match. All those meetings beforehand, all the preparation, all the conversations kind of leading to this moment where they can finally play their first match. What was your message to the team, Anitra, ahead of that first match for the program?
Well, leading up to our departure for Puerto Rico, it was really just keeping them calm, collected, because I knew once we got there that their nerves were going to kick in, even though they said they weren't. I knew that they were going to. And so it was just really about keeping them calm, maintaining our structure system, and then really just telling them everything you've worked for ever since we started our first practice up to that point. Now we get to carry it to Puerto Rico. And it really was just that I wasn't going to feed them any extra additional bells and whistles. It was really just everything you've worked towards. We just now pack it up and carry it to Puerto Rico, warmer climate. And just telling them that, trust the process, believe in each other. And no matter what happens, we keep it on the court. And our motto is win or win. And the reason we say win or win, because a lot of people think that we're being cocky and saying that we're going to win everything. And that's not the message in that. Win or win is we either win on the court or we win off the court by going and learning what we need to do differently because the outcome didn't happen the way we wanted. So either way, we're winning. We don't look at it. We don't use the L word. We never say the L word. It's so difficult because I've been so used to saying it. So now I'm like, so we did not win. We that non-win we just had. This is what we have to do differently. So it's just really hard to not say the L word. But we say win or win. And Puerto Rico, I tell you, I don't know if Victor knows this, but we had adversity before we even left. I think you might know this. Yeah. So we were supposed to be picked up by our charter bus company at 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 3 a.m. because our flight was supposed to leave at 5 a.m. and 5 or 6 a.m. And so, we're all at the school ready to go and no bus. And so I called the bus driver. Whoa. And he's not here. He's not even remotely close to being here. He's like 2 hours away. And so I remember calling one of the associate athletic directors, Dr. Lamar. I said, I'm so sorry to wake you up, but we have a dilemma. Our flight leaves and we are 2.5 hours away from the airport and we need to know what to do. And so he's like, well, we're going to have to wake up VP Owens. And I thought, oh no, who wants to wake up their athletic director? But I mean, it was the best call because she got on that call and that phone call and she said, okay, are the vans there? She said, she's like, let's take the vans. We crammed 22 people in 2 12-passenger vans with luggage. With luggage. So it would have been fine without the luggage, but with the luggage, we somehow made it. We made it to our flight on time. And And then, once we got to Puerto Rico, everything was great. But it's funny because in that message, I told the team right before the game started, we've been through some adversity. We've been through adversity. So this is going to be nothing. I said, just go out there and have fun. I said, half the battle was just getting here. Now we're here. So have fun. So yeah, it was a blast. I mean, from point one, I think that one was the most exciting, just getting our first point ever in the history of the program. And Marcellus Owens is going to remember that for the rest of his life. And so just having that moment, and then the moment of going to the fifth set, I thought to myself, are we seriously going 5 in our first game? Like, you guys are going to do this to me on the first game as a coach?
There was no
But,
other way. There was no other way it was
no,
gonna happen,
right?
right?
So I remember just even in that fifth set, even in between sets, just staying calm, because I said, if I stay calm, they're going to stay calm. And if I show them that I still believe in them, no matter the outcome, then they're going to still continue to believe, because I know they're going to respond based off of whatever my emotion or reaction is. And so in that fifth set, I just remember telling them, listen, fifth set, this is what I want. First 5 points, no errors. And they looked at me crazy. And then I said, the next 5 points, 1 error. Then the last 5 points, no errors. And then they're still looking like, is she okay? And I said, why do you think I said that? And they were like, we don't know. And I said, because I want you to have something to strive for. Strive towards a goal. When I tell you, I did not think that they were going to actually do that. They got out there and actually they looked at me and said, Coach, first 5 points, no errors. And I said, what? And then the next 5, I think maybe they had a couple. And then the last 5, they had 1, or, just it didn't matter to me. It just, I just wanted them to stay focused in the moment and not focus so much on, making mistakes, have that next ball mentality. But, now they're like, we're ready. If we go a fifth set again, I said, if we go a fifth set again, I'm not going to make it. But, which we haven't, knock on wood, we have not yet. But yeah, Puerto Rico was so much fun. It was so much fun. And I'm so glad that they were able to capture it. I'm so glad.
I love that little, creating like little mini games within the bigger game to kind of have those goals to go after. And then so funny that they're locked in. They're like, all right, coach. Yep. Zero errors. Victor, for you, did you kind of adopt that win-win mentality going into this from a storytelling standpoint? Just, that there was the real possibility that it could be not a win going into to this match.
Yeah, you're sending. I mean, listen, any team that goes on the road is challenged. There's for all the reasons. You had a first year brand new team going to Puerto Rico to start the season. Yeah, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, yeah, there's a lot of distractions there. This is probably not the ideal scenario for Coach to have her first match. But the reality is, we were prepared either way, and the story of if that first match would have gone the other way, the story of resiliency and bounce back that I know would have happened, because I know the character of those individuals and of that collective team, it would have been ultimately just as powerful. So it was definitely a win-win from a content standpoint. But yeah, can't complain about a five set match to kick it off.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it wasn't going to happen any other way, I feel like. And talking about distractions too, I love the little ice cream scene too, just kind of that you had in there, just them walking down the street and then, oh yeah, dip in here for some ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard reeling them in for curfew, knowing we had games. We had enough of, like, our itinerary was great because they had a stretch between games. But it was like, in the back of my head, it's like, yeah, trying to enforce curfew when there's a beach and sand and, and just even the strip where we stayed, there was ice cream place, Anita's, which gelato, they love that place, and just tons of places for them to explore. It was like, okay. So I said, here, we need to compromise. Here's the compromise, because I want you all to have fun. I want you to have the time of your life. But we have a game tomorrow. So I need you all lights out by 11:30. They're like, can we say midnight? I said, listen, 11:30 was the stretch. That was the stretch. I wanted to say 11. But it actually worked in our favor. Our tour guide, Steven, he supported my 11:30. He said, yeah, you don't want to be on the streets, past 11 actually. And he's like, I was trying to help you. And I said, 11:30 is fine.
I love that.
They represent every HBCU. They represent a sport that is underrepresented from from a diversity standpoint. They represent every little boy who wants to play volleyball at this level. I thought that was just such an incredible quote from you, Anitra, as you were talking to your team. What does UMES men's volleyball program, what does the men's volleyball program, these athletes, mean for the sport, and specifically, for boys and men's volleyball?
Oh, they mean every bit of what I said. Just the every HBCU is represented in volleyball. They represent every HBCU, even if they don't have men's volleyball, because this sport is definitely underrepresented from a diversity standpoint. It's getting there, much better than what it was years ago, but it's getting there. And these young men each represent within that what it looks like to be resilient, what it looks like to overcome, whether it be setback, because a lot of them had to go through, different adversity in their life. A lot of them had to go through several doors of no's from a recruiting standpoint. And a lot of them have said, UMES was the first program that believed in me. So I want these young men to represent what it means when we say equal access, what it means to have an opportunity to play something that they love with no type of limitation set on it. And I think when we go out and play other teams, yes, there are HBCUs at the D2 level that have done a tremendous job of representation. But now we're at the D1 level. And so now when we go out, now we're representing that it's possible at the Division I level for these young men to play in this sport that is definitely underrepresented. But it also shows the diversity within our team, because we have non-African American players on our team who believe in this program and the culture. And I think what's empowering is when we're out and some of the adversity we faced when we've gone out to restaurants or gone out just in public, we've had players on the team ask their teammates, is this what you guys have to deal with? And so it opens up an opportunity for us to educate and to be able to say, this is what we experience, but it's not okay. And we also open it up so that they celebrate each other's diversity, because it's not just black and white, right? So we celebrate the diversity within our team. We have 18 players from 11 different states. So this team represents so much more. It's bigger than volleyball. And so I remind these guys every day, what you're doing is bigger than volleyball. And you may not understand that right now, but when you get older, and I said, when you guys invite me to your wedding and, and you have kids and all that, and I'm probably walking around with a cane, you'll be able to reflect on that and say, share with your kids and your grandkids. Look what we did. We were part of something bigger than ourselves, and they're always going to be the first. And that's something that no one can take away from them. Even if they were to move on and go somewhere else, no one will ever be able to take away that they were the first of a program that was the first. They're trailblazers. And I don't know that some of them realize how empowering that is.
If I could piggyback on that, the thing that jumped out at me over the 18-month process of following the team is really the opportunity that was created for these 18 young men. And from the perspective of, in the beginning, looking at a donation from the First Point Volleyball Foundation, and getting to know a lot of the people on that board, and now the USA Volleyball Foundation, and the time and financial resources that they put towards creating these opportunities, for me to see how that impacts an individual. So it's no longer about, the big paper check ceremony. It comes down to the individuals. And there's a scene in the film with a fifth-year senior, Kenyon Haynes, who on his recruiting visit has a meeting with Coach. And at that time, Coach offers him the opportunity to stay and play his fifth year there, and then continue as a grad assistant so that he can finish up his grad school. And it's life-changing for him. And the expression on his face, and then ultimately what Coach says and feels about the chance to give him that opportunity, I think, is what wraps all of it together. And it's powerful. It's powerful to see the work that's being done at these really high levels with the USA Volleyball Foundation, the impact that it actually has then on individual people and individual lives.
I think that was perfectly said. Thank you so much, Victor, for putting that into words there. Because yeah, a lot of people, you'll read the headlines of a donation going to HBCU, or like you said, the check ceremony being presented. But I think this film really very well, it shows just the impact and the opportunities of the individual that really happens after that, those moments. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Very, very well said. Continuing with you, and I told you I would get back to this, but was there anything else in the documentary that just that you had to cut? They didn't make the final cut. Any fun moments that you really, you were hoping to get in there, but maybe just didn't fit the tone of the film?
Sure. There's a lot of time spent with individual characters, and one of the challenges of pulling all this story together in 40 minutes is what drives the story forward and what doesn't. And so it's not about any one specific moment, but the memories that I have of being there for conversations off the court with these athletes, and the way that they related to each other, and watching their friendships and their bonds grow. That's the thing that there's not one specific moment in the film that shows that. I think overall it does, but that certainly is one of my memories and takeaways too, is those times that I got a chance to be with them as they bonded.
And just before I let you go here, Anitra, I think that was very well said early on, when you talked about the diversity in the sport. It's getting better. Whether that's even just like the resources and the opportunities that are available to young athletes. It's getting better. It's not there yet, but it's getting better. And I think just after watching this film, such an inspiration to the sport, I think. And I hope a lot of volleyball fans, people in the sport, the community, I hope they watch it, because I think it's just so important to show what can be done with just a little bit of help and giving opportunities to these young athletes, these young men, and yeah, I just think UMES it's a huge, amazing step forward for the sport, and I'm excited to see the reception of the documentary for sure on Friday. Before I let you go, too, just would love a little bit of an update on just the inaugural season. How's it going, Anitra?
Wow. Overall, we are right now 12-7, and we
Amazing.
have 8 games remaining of our regular season. And interesting enough, when the documentary's coming out, we will be playing at Damon for our NEC conference match. So it's I actually told the team, I said, you know what, we're going to be playing when that documentary is coming out. So I think we're going to watch it as a team
Oh,
after
so fun.
the game. So we're going to collect cell phones so that they don't sneak and try and watch it separate. Um, so I think we're just going to have dinner and at the hotel and watch it together.
A little watch party. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And
But
then
we're doing great.
And so 12-7. I remembered in the documentary, the NEC gets an automatic bid as well into the tournament later on in the year, in the season. So that match on that Friday is the start of conference play. Was that what you're saying, or was that
So
the?
right now, that would be our third conference match. So
okay.
right now we are 2-2 in the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Awesome.
2-2 and still have 8 games remaining. So, the team has a big goal, and I'm right there with them. And I believe with the way that they have been playing and supporting each other and working hard, that they have an opportunity to make it to that NEC tournament. The top 4 teams get to go. It's a battle. The NEC is a tough conference, and we respect every opponent in that conference. But yeah, we definitely don't count ourselves out. We don't count ourselves out.
Before I let you go, for both of you, was there anything anything else you'd like to share or talk about that we may have missed or jumped over throughout our conversation here? An amazing conversation. Really thankful for you guys' time.
Yeah, I would just like to wrap by thanking Coach Brockman, thanking from President Anderson, VP Owens, just tremendous group of people. We joked about it earlier, but it's not easy to have cameras with you every step of the way. It presents a lot of challenges, and we were embraced from the beginning, and that's very much appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, and I also want to extend thank yous, and hopefully I don't miss anyone, but my gratitude to you, Victor, and TL. It has been a pleasure getting to work with you and meet you. And Stephen, we were sad. The team was sad the last time we had to see Victor and TL. Like, we
Oh,
really formed a
yeah.
nice connection with them. So we were like, wait a minute, is this the last time we're actually gonna be in person with you all? So truly can't express enough gratitude to Victor, TL, First Point Volleyball Foundation, all the way from John Sparrow to Wade Gerard to the board members, how they embraced UMES from the beginning, and not even just UMES, embraced adding some diversity to volleyball and sticking with it, not just saying they want to do it, but actually following through. And I can't express gratitude enough for that. BP Owens, Dr. Anderson, all the staff at UMES who have been supportive of us from day one to now and going forward. And then all of our supporters, everyone who's reached out and sent messages to the players. I thank the players for trusting and believing in this program and this process. without them, it wouldn't be possible. And I appreciate them. And then my assistant coach, Che Cooper, for his belief. He played at Fort Valley State and George Mason. And so he's been on both sides, and so I appreciate his buy-in as well. And thank you, Stephen, for this opportunity to be on the show.
Of course, yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. It was probably a very emotional moment when the documentary crew had to leave. Wait, you're not staying? What? You're not on the staff? Really cool. Well, Anitra, Victor, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. Looking forward to seeing the reception of the documentary, and of course, looking forward to seeing how the rest of your season goes, Anitra. Of course, for our listeners, this documentary releases on Friday, March 27th in the afternoon there. So
maybe tune into that
ESPN
UMES
Plus.
game on ESPN Plus. Okay.
On ESPN Plus, correct.
Tune into that UMES game and then watch the documentary right after that, right?
It's a great doubleheader.
Yeah, doubleheader. Yeah, exactly. Well, Victor, thank you, and Anitra as well. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we will cross paths down the road, no doubt. The volleyball community, like I said, big but small.
Yes.
It's a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Stephen.
Thank you both. Yep. That was such a fun conversation and just a very cool opportunity for us to learn more from Anitra about what it really took to create and start a Division I men's volleyball program from the ground up. And then, of course, hearing from Victor just about the process and the vision of, how he was going to capture each step along the way, ending, of course, with the team's inaugural match. But yeah, some of my, favorite moments from our conversation was just kind of learning more about just the little behind the scenes notes that you kind of picked up on as you were watching the film, but then Anitra and Victor both adding just a little bit more context to that and backstory. I think the fun part was, of course, when Anitra got hired, they said essentially just congratulations, you got the job, or we want to offer you the job. And also ESPN's going to be following you along the way, going to follow you along as you're recruiting at nationals and just starting this program. So that was a fun moment hearing from Anitra, and then just all the little behind the scenes notes that Victor had, as Anitra was talking through her story, and each step along the way for her, Victor kind of adding in his little anecdotes of, his perspective in those moments, being the filmmaker, and kind of the emotion that he felt behind the lens, if you will. But thank you again to Anitra and Victor for their time. Reminder that Why Not Us is streaming on ESPN Plus and the ESPN app. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your whole volleyball community to watch this. It's an incredibly inspiring story, and watching it not only supports the film and UMES men's volleyball, but it also just supports the growth of the sport. So listeners, thank you as always for supporting our show, and hope you enjoyed this episode and this conversation. If you have ideas for future guests and topics, they're always welcome. Reach out to us at the USAB show at usab.org. Follow and leave a comment on your go-to podcast platforms. It really helps us grow and reach new listeners. Be sure to check out our video episodes on YouTube as well. But until then, this has been this week's episode. You're listening to the USA Volleyball Show, the official podcast of USA Volleyball.
This has been the USA Volleyball Show with Stephen Munson. Produced by Curtis Ward. Our content producer is Laura Fawcett. Our marketing lead is Bree Jaycox. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the USA Volleyball Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts.